Hello, fellow educators. Welcome to the Classroom Behaviour Solutions podcast, the podcast that gives you weekly scientifically grounded and evidence-based solutions to your behaviour dilemmas, providing a blueprint to developing flexible behaviour solutions that really work for your individual pupils, classes, or even whole school environments. If you're a teacher, a Senko, or even a school leader with a passion for supporting pupil behaviour in a way that is positive and effective, this podcast is for you. My name is Adam Dean, and I'm your host. Welcome to episode 3 of the Classroom Behaviour Solutions podcast. So this week we're going to look at the concept of effort and how that affects behaviour. Now, effort is really important because when you come up with any system to support positive behaviour, you need to consider the effort involved in the pupil doing the behaviour you are trying to support and what the effort levels are in comparison to in terms of any challenging behaviour that you might be trying to reduce. So, a bit like last week, consider a time when you've put in place a fantastic new reward system for a class or a student and it's crashed and burned straight away. We've all been there, we've all done it. Or you've done something and it's worked for a couple of days and then it's crashed and burned and you thought, well, what happened? I know he loves stickers or Lego or he enjoys going out and playing football as a reward for 10 minutes with his friends. And he was working for it, but then he stopped working for it or he never did it. Well, sometimes we need to consider the effort of the behaviour as well as the reinforcer. So behaviour effort. So imagine you're walking down the street and someone said to you, if you pick up this bag, I'll give you £20. Would you do it? Well, assuming you weren't worried about what was in the bag and you were surrounded by trusting people and all of that sort of stuff, you'd probably pick up the bag because £20 for picking up a bag. Lovely. Now, what if the bag was full of rocks and they wanted you to carry it 100 meters? No? Yes? Maybe. Possibly. Depends how strong you are, all of those sorts of things. If you've got any injuries, if you're even able to pick up the rocks. It doesn't matter how easy or difficult it is. If you can't do it, then if it's impossible, you can't do it. Now, what if they offer you £100 or a holiday? For some of you, if I offered you £1,000 to do 100 push-ups, you'd jump at the opportunity. For some people, the idea of doing 100 push-ups seems totally impractical, even for a lovely £1,000, or £1 million even. So it doesn't matter what the reinforcement is at the end of it. It's too effortful. It's too effortful to even do it. So in this situation, both the effort of the behaviour and the reward have to be balanced in order for you to do the job. Okay, so let's talk about for work. Okay, if your school increased your hours but decreased your pay, would you do it? Most of you would probably say no, okay, because most of you, you're doing more effort for less reinforcement. And I know some of you will be saying, well, I don't do the job for the money. I do it because I want to see the children achieve. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we still need to consider how hard the job is before we would consider that reinforcement not worthy of that amount of effort. If your school told you tomorrow that you had to work 24 hours every day or week, you physically couldn't do it. It wouldn't be a case of effort, it would be a case of impossibility. So let's start to apply this to a classroom environment. So we'll introduce a lovely points chart to the school, and we say to the school, all the pupils in the school, that 100 points gets the children a day trip to the beach. Okay. Now, let's assume, completely inaccurately, that this day trip to the beach would potentially be an effective reinforcement for all pupils. Now, I say inaccurately because there's no way we can guarantee that every pupil wants to go to the beach. But let's say they do. And that we've made 100 points relatively easy to earn. Well, in that case, all the children would engage with the plan and go to the beach. If we've made it easy to earn and the reinforcer is actually a reinforcer, then it will work. But that's not the reality, is it? That's not the reality. For some children, they won't want to go to the beach Some children, the things that you're asking them to do in order to get those points is going to be too difficult. For some children, if we ask them, you need to be on time to all your lessons, that might be really easy for some children. It might be more difficult for others. Let's say that we said to these pupils that in order to get their points, they'd need to answer 10 mid-level maths questions. Now, who's going to engage? Well, the pupils that are good at maths are probably going to do it because it's really easy for them to do those maths questions. They're going to do those maths questions. Assuming they want a trip to the beach, they're probably going to do it. The kids that are okay at maths, but maths is a little bit effortful, but they also love the beach, like they're really reinforced by the idea of going to the beach, they probably will, because the maths is an effort, but it kind of balances out with going to the beach. But what if they're okay at maths and they didn't like the beach? Or what if we asked the children that are really not very good at maths to do the same thing? You get the idea. So if we made that about behaviour, and in fact, let's talk for a moment. I've seen behaviour support systems in lots of different schools. And let's assume we've defined the behaviour really clearly. So the behaviour is that you will get a point for every 5 minutes that you sit in your chair and listen. I've seen that as a target. Now, some children are going to get that really easily. Some children are going to find that difficult. And some children are going to find that physically impossible. And what's going to happen is some children are going to do it easily and get the reinforcement. Some children are going to struggle but get the reinforcement. And then maybe they'll do it a little bit more often. But then most of those other children aren't going to do it because it's not worth the effort. Okay, so what have we talked about this week? What we talked about today is that with any behavior support system, there needs to be a balance of reinforcement versus the amount of effort needed to actually get that reinforcement. Next week, we're going to talk about something called the flow of behavior and how the balance of reinforcement and effort affects flow. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Classroom Behaviour Solutions podcast. To make sure you don't miss future episodes, click the subscribe button and share this podcast with others. The more people that listen, the more help I can provide. To learn more and to find our social media pages, visit www.classroombehavioursolutions.com. See you next time on the Classroom Behaviour Solutions podcast. Thank you.